Hey, this is Coach Wheeler, and I wanted to give you today's tip and advice. And today's tip is the popular classic of overthinking. Hey, I hear you say, finally, someone who's going to break down overthinking. Now, this is something that comes up a lot in my one-to-one coaching, my relationship coaching. It comes up all the time. I do it, my gran does it, everybody does it. It's just something that happens. And these are some clever, handy tips on how to break that down and try to control it. It's not something we'll ever get rid of. Humans have a conscious and a brain and a mind and thoughts, and they're always going to be there. So it's learning on how to deal with it, to control it, and try to put some sort of handle on it. Because I find for some people, it becomes this big monster where they can spend their whole lives overthinking and not actually getting anywhere. Procrastination, and overthinking can be the thief of joy. And there's a clever saying that says, you're only destined to become what you decide to be. And that leads me nicely into my first part of these tips and advice. And the first one is, I'm a choice theory practitioner. So choice theory and reality therapy is a big thing. And one of the first things to do is to make a choice. And you think, well, what's that got to do with overthinking? I don't control my overthinking. It just happens, David. Coach Wheeler, don't you understand? It just happens. But that's the thing. You're only destined to become what you decide to be. And using that theory, you decide whether your overthinking controls you or you control your overthinking. That's the first tip. You make a choice and decide. You're in control. Is your overthinking in control, or are you in control? Well, you're in control. You decide. And that's the first tip. You make a choice. And when you do that and you tell your brain to do that, your brain will be like, oh, okay. All right, yeah, well, I'll do whatever you say. You're in control, not me. If you let the brain be in control, it will just go crazy. And it can leave you exhausted, tired, flat, disillusioned, because then you have so many thoughts coming in. You're more confused. Well, I've thought about everything. It's like the only positive thing to come out of overthinking is that when you do finally make a decision after 9 years of deciding what jumper you're going to wear and what to wear for breakfast, is that that's what you're going to wear and what you're going to have for breakfast, because you've thought about every single parameter. But it doesn't help. The time limit and all that stuff does not help. Overthinking and just going crazy will drive you mental. So the first tip, or the first part of my tip, is to choose. You decide. That leads on to the second part, and you say, well, okay, well, if I decide that I'm going to not let my overthinking rule me, but it still comes in and I don't want to be a slave to my overthinking, my thinking's a slave to me, how do I make that work, I hear you say? Can't people at the back, get him to tell you how to do it. It's easy to say to do it, but how do you get to do it? Hey, well, here's the part. You put together a plan. Have you heard of those plans? When you put together a plan and then you execute the plan, motherfucker, you get that done. So part of the plan is to think and then do. Think and then do. The thinking is where you create the things and you go over what it is you want to do, and then you put a time limit to it. Mel Robbins has the clever thing of the 5-second rule. She wrote a book about it. It's a great idea and it's used a lot. And I've heard people say, well, when I'm angry, I'm only angry for 5 minutes, and then you get rid of all that anger in that 5 minutes, and then you make a choice. You put a time limit on things, and it's the same with overthinking. Think and do. The thinking, you give it a time limit. I did this morning when I had all these ideas, because I read books, I study, I coach people, and I can have and then I want to know what jumper to wear. Shall I wear the Charlie Brown jumper, or shall I wear the grey jumper? Guess which jumper I decided to wear? I made a choice and I did it. But I gave myself a time limit. And when I was thinking about these videos and ideas, I wrote down a list and I gave myself a time limit. And depending on the severity of what you're thinking about, I don't want to be facetious here and say, well, just the 5-second rule with everything. Because if it's a relationship or career or a marriage or your kids or your wife and your holiday and things like that, there are a lot of things to think about. But even so, give yourself a time limit and then do it. Think and then do. Think and then do. Now, here comes the psychological part of it, or the clever part of it. Our brain has all these neurons, and when you connect those neurons, they become a neurological pathway, a connection to something that we thought about and we did. And then it becomes this pattern, and you can build a pattern into a habit. So from the plan, you've made a choice to control your overthinking. You're not going to be a slave to your overthinking. It's going to be a slave to you. You then have a time limit on the thinking, whatever that is. 2 seconds to decide I'm not going to have any breakfast because I'm fasting. Simple. Choice done. And then I do it. And then that's the thinking and then the doing. And then that becomes a think and do. Think and do. And the doing's very important, because we can overthink things and get nowhere. But in the doing is where the beauty happens. And it's like scientists. They go into a lab. Come on, lads, get the clipboards out and the white jackets. Let's go down there and get some chemicals, chuck them together, and let's do some tests. And then what happens is from that, from the doing, from the ideas, the doing, they have to actually do the tests. And when the test happens, sometimes even if it's the wrong thing, and this is a clever thing about the doing, even if it's the wrong thing, this is the clever part, you discover what not to do. Or as a byproduct of the doing, you discover something else. Oh, we've discovered penicillin. Oh, didn't know that. Yeah, bloody hell, that's handy. We can use that. It wasn't what we were testing on, but we thought of something, we did it, and this is what come out of it. And even if it's something you do, if I hate this jumper and I decided to wear it, it's like, I'll know that wearing this jumper wasn't the right decision, but it's on now and it's done, and I'm off thinking about something else. So that's the first two parts of the advice. The second part, or the next stages of that, is to write a list. And there's two parts to writing the list. And these are the clever parts. The first part of it is the thing that you're thinking about, the thing that's on your mind, the thing that's giving you drama. Write down a list of the can-dos and the can't-dos, the things you're in control of and the things you're not in control of. Let's just do it as a nice statistical square thing. There's 10 things, yeah? Get those in the thing. 10 things, yeah? 5 that you can't control and 5 that you can control. And you simply decide to cross out the things you can't control. Because guess what? You can't control them. You have a choice to not worry about those things, you know? Well, I have to pay taxes. Well, I know that. So it's something you can't control. It's something you just have to do. So get that off the list. And then that turns the list from 10 into 5. It's much more manageable. And then of those things that you can do, focus on them. And when writing that list, the other clever part of this list, I said there was 2 parts to this list, is when you write it down, you then don't have to think about it anymore. It's helped with your overthinking. See the genius in it? It's now not something you have to think about because you've written it down. It's on a list. It's like if I go to the shops and I think to myself, I write a list of what I need. I go through the house and I think, right, I need bleach, I need eggs, I need milk. What am I going to have for dinner? I need some earbuds. You know, get a bit of deodorant because I'm smelling a bit whiffy, you know. And you decide to write a list. Then when you've written that list, it's on the list. You don't have to think about it anymore. You walk down the shops thinking about something else. It's not on your mind. And you're not going to forget it. Because how many times have I been at and I do this, I go to the shops after work, think I'll get something and did it. And I get home and I think, oh man, I didn't get the egg. I wanted bacon and eggs and I didn't get any eggs. Oh, David. And you end up like not doing it. But when you write the list, it sets a sense of calm. You get to the shops, you've completely forgotten what you needed. But guess what? You get the list out. Oh yeah. And even if your writing is really bad, like mine sometimes, I think, is that Breno, Brene? Oh, bread, yeah. It must be bread. Yeah, that says bread, yeah. Then you know to get bread. You don't have to think, is there any bread in the cupboard? I can't remember. Because you thought about other things. So see, you leave space in your brain to release that. So let's recap with these helping. And I've used these with lots of people and they do work. So this isn't me just, you know, saying, oh, a stupid list about shopping and this, that and the other. These are tangible things you can break down and actually use. So the first part of the tip is decide. Decide that you're going to control your overthinking. When you tell your brain that, it will do it. You don't become a slave to your overthinking becomes a slave to you. Then you put together the plan of controlling your thinking. And with that, you give yourself a time limit and then you do. You think and you do. You think and you do. And in the doing becomes the magic. Then on top of that, and your time limit, like I said, Mel Robbins' 5-second rule. I've heard there was a coach that worked with Tiger Woods and he said, good, get your anger out. And I heard these business guys as well, they're saying in a meeting, if there's anger, it's like, cool, we're going to give ourselves 2 minutes to be angry, and in that 2 minutes, get your anger out, get it out, but then deal with it. It's done. You've made a choice to give yourself 2 minutes of anger and be gone. It's the same with this. Give yourself a time limit of the thinking and then do it, and then do it. And then when you write the list, look at the list of the controls, what you can control, what you can't control, what you can do and what you can't do. Get rid of the can't do's, you know, that you can't control those. Get rid of those. And on that list, it's where the ideas come. Like Michelangelo, you write down your list. It becomes something you can go back to as a guide and you don't have to think about it anymore. It's already out of your brain. You're not leaving it in there stored. I hope these, and just like this video, I did exactly the same. This morning I could have overthought about there's loads of videos I want to do, loads of ideas I have, but I made a list, I thought about it and I did it. And give me a thumbs up, follow and subscribe. I hope this tip helps and it gets you a little bit closer to not overthinking too much. And don't stress if you still overthink. It takes time to get this as a habit. They say to get something into a habit that you do all the time, you have to do for a month, like 30 days. So if you do the think and the do, and you do that 30 times, it then becomes a habit. And don't go crazy because your brain is going to always think of things. Oh, I've got to call my mum back. I need to send a message to to my loved ones and my girlfriend, and oh, I must do this and not forget to do that, and oh yeah, I need to pay this, and that's going to happen. Oh, and that work I've got this, but that's always going to happen. But the things you can control, you control, and things you don't, you can't. I hope this tip helps. Look forward to more useful tips and advice, and I'll see you guys. Like and subscribe to Coach Wheeler's YouTube page, and I'll see you guys on the other side. I hope it helps. Much love. Peace.